Ever wonder what lengths people will go to for a little mental clarity, a boost in creativity, a different perspective on the world? Well, we're diving deep into a practice that dates back centuries, but had a surprising resurgence in the 1960s.
Trepanation.
Trepanation, and yes, it involves the Beatles.
Trepanation, for those unfamiliar, is the act of drilling a hole in the skull. It's been practiced across cultures for a surprisingly long time.
Yeah.
But the reasons vary wildly, from releasing evil spirits to relieving pressure.
Right.
What's interesting about the 1960s revival is the focus on consciousness expansion.
And at the center of this revival was a Dutch librarian named Hugo Bart Huges. Quite a character. He was so convinced trepanation could enhance brain function, he
performed it on himself.
He performed it on himself.
In 1965.
In 1965.
Huges wasn't just some eccentric tinkerer. He self-published a detailed work titled The Mechanism of Brain Blood Volume, outlining his theory. Essentially, he argued that our upright posture restricts blood flow to the brain, limiting its potential. Trepanation, he believed, could increase blood volume in the skull, leading to a permanent high and heightened awareness.
His ideas got the attention of someone known for pushing boundaries both musically and personally, John Lennon.
Right.
It said that Lennon became quite fascinated by Huges' theories, even inviting him to the iconic Bed-In for Peace in Amsterdam.
Lennon's interest went beyond mere curiosity. He actually requested that Huges perform the procedure on him.
Really?
Imagine that. John Lennon undergoing trepanation.
Did he actually go through with it?
Surprisingly, no. Huges, the man who championed trepanation and performed it on himself, refused to do it for Lennon.
Wow.
His reasoning. He claimed Lennon already possessed the mental clarity he was seeking.
So even the advocate thought Lennon was already operating on a different level? This story really highlights Lennon's personality, always seeking, always exploring.
It does. And it gets even more fascinating when you consider what happened next. Lennon, still enthusiastic about the idea, approached his bandmate Paul McCartney with a rather radical proposition.
Okay, this is where I'm really intrigued. What did McCartney think about all of this?
McCartney, known for his pragmatism, was far less enthusiastic.
Okay.
He flatly refused Lennon's suggestion that they both undergo trepanation. His response: "You try it and let me know how it goes."
Classic McCartney, down to earth and practical.
Yeah.
Their personalities really come through in this anecdote.
Absolutely. It speaks volumes about their dynamic. Lennon, the adventurous one, always pushing boundaries. McCartney, the grounded one, offering a counterbalance.
Right.
Yet there's a clear respect for each other's boundaries.
McCartney later shared that Lennon knew when he meant no, and there was no need to argue.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how their different approaches, both personally and creatively, contributed to the Beatles' magic.
It's a fascinating dynamic to consider. How those different personalities fueled their creative collaboration. Imagine if McCartney had agreed. Would the Beatles as we know them even exist?
It's tempting to get lost in that what-if scenario. But let's get back to Huges' theories for a moment. While his ideas about trepanation were certainly out there, they weren't entirely baseless.
Right.
There is a historical context for this procedure.
You're right. Trepanation has been documented for thousands of years, with evidence found in ancient skulls from various cultures. The reasons for performing it varied. Some believed it could cure headaches or epilepsy, while others saw it as a way to release evil spirits.
So while Huges' theory might seem outlandish to us now, it's interesting to see how he drew upon ancient practices and reinterpreted them through a modern lens.
Exactly. And it's important to note that even today, there's still debate surrounding the potential benefits and risks of trepanation. While some claim it can improve mental clarity or creativity, the scientific evidence to support these claims is limited at best.
And the medical community largely views it as a dangerous and unnecessary procedure. The skull, after all, serves a vital purpose in protecting the brain. Deliberately drilling a hole in it carries inherent risks.
Absolutely. This brings us back to the potential consequences if Lennon had followed through with his desire for trepanation.
Right.
While we can speculate about the impact on the Beatles' music or his public image, the potential health risks shouldn't be overlooked.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hypothetical scenarios, but it's crucial to remember that trepanation is a serious medical procedure with potential complications.
Precisely. And while Lennon's interest in trepanation might seem like a quirky footnote in rock and roll history, it actually serves as a valuable springboard to explore the broader theme of mental well-being.
That's an interesting connection. How so?
Well, Lennon's fascination with trepanation, regardless of whether he ultimately went through with it, speaks to a fundamental human desire: the pursuit of mental clarity, enhanced creativity, and perhaps even a deeper understanding of oneself.
That's a really insightful observation. It's like trepanation, for Lennon, was a symbolic representation of his constant desire to push boundaries and explore different states of consciousness.
Exactly. And that desire to explore different paths to well-being is something that resonates with people today, perhaps even more so than in the past.
That's true. Think about all the practices people embrace today for mental and emotional well-being. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, even things like breath work and sound healing.
You're right. And some of these practices, just like trepanation in its time, were once considered fringe or even taboo.
Hmm.
But as our understanding of the mind-body connection evolves, so do the approaches we take to achieve well-being.
It's a fascinating evolution to consider. Trepanation might seem like an extreme example, but it highlights that the human pursuit of mental and emotional well-being has been a constant throughout history, taking various forms and expressions. It seems like the more we learn about the brain, the more we realize we don't know, and yet people throughout history have tried all sorts of things to influence it, some more extreme than others.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a fascinating question for our listeners to ponder. If you'll indulge me in a little thought experiment,
I'm game. Lay it on us.
would you be more or less inclined to try anything, if you knew John Lennon had done it? Whether it's a creative technique, a lifestyle choice, even something like a wellness practice. Does his endorsement make it more appealing, or perhaps raise a red flag?
That's a great question. I think for some people, Lennon's rebellious spirit, his willingness to challenge norms, might make something more enticing. There's that cool factor of being on the same wavelength as someone so iconic.
Right. It could almost be a mark of validation. But on the flip side, knowing Lennon's history with experimentation, some might see it as a cautionary tale. Not everything he tried turned out to be beneficial, and his influence shouldn't outweigh individual judgment.
It's a reminder that even our heroes are human, prone to making mistakes following intriguing dead ends. Their choices don't have to dictate our own.
Exactly, and it speaks to the importance of critical thinking, especially when it comes to things that impact our well-being. Whether it's a new diet, a meditation technique, or even something as radical as trepanation, doing your research, consulting experts, and weighing the risks and benefits is crucial.
So while this deep dive started with a rather unusual story about John Lennon and trepanation, it ultimately leads us back to a timeless truth. The pursuit of knowledge, well-being, and a deeper understanding of ourselves is a personal journey. We can learn from others, be inspired by them, but ultimately the choices are ours to make.
Beautifully put. And I hope this exploration has encouraged you to approach those choices with a healthy dose of curiosity, a critical eye, and a sense of adventure. Because who knows, maybe the next groundbreaking idea for well-being is just waiting to be discovered.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep those minds open, and never stop exploring.